back up in our book reading. Codeword Barbelon 666, Danger in the Vatican. This is book one, The Sons of Laloya and Their Plans for World Domination by P.D. Stuart. We are in chapter 32. I think I put 31 on the video. It's chapter 32. Okay. Enemies of the state unmasked. Secret plots against America. When fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and carrying the cross. Sinclair Lewis, It Can't Happen Here, 1953. The high office of president has been used to foment a plot to destroy the Americans' freedom, and before I leave office, I must inform the citizens of this plight. President John F. Kennedy, Columbia University, November 13th, 1963, 10 days before his assassination. Danger, like a vast rock on a railway, lies before this people, and we are bound to swing the lantern of warning before their eyes. So wrote R.L. Dessler of the impending confrontation soon to explode upon the American people. Listen, says the Jesuit general, let us bring all our skill to bear upon this part of our plan. Our chief concern must be to mold the people to our purposes. Doubtless, the first generation will not be wholly ours, but the second will nearly belong to us, and the third entirely. Yet the American people, for the most part, are totally ignorant of these plans. The former Catholic priest, Charles Chinaquai, warned repeatedly against the all and singular intention of the Jesuits. On May 2nd, 1493, Pope Alexander VI issued a bull ceding to the Spanish sovereigns the rights, privileges, and indulgences in respect to the newly discovered regions of America, thereby granting, with the stroke of a pen, the entire continent of America to Catholic Spain. Sadly, these facts are hidden from the American people, who derive much of the history about their great country from the reading of the sanitized textbooks, encyclopedia clippings, magazine articles, and television, rather than from primary sources. Hence, most Americans would have no idea that Cardinal Wailoa, Pope John Paul II, meant when he said in a speech given in September 1976, 2 years prior to being elected Pope, quote, "We are now standing in the face of the greatest historical confrontation humanity has gone through. Wide circles of American society and wide circles of the Christian community do not realize this fully. We are now facing the final confrontation between the church and the anti-church. This confrontation lies within the plans of divine providence," unquote. The Pope's statement has been repeatedly cited by the United States Congress and subcommittees of the United States Senate. What is this confrontation? The Constitution of the United States of America guarantees liberty of conscience and freedom of religion, but the Pope regards it as absurdity. Pope Pius IX called it absurd and erroneous doctrine and a pest. What will cause the confrontation? Let us hear from the Catholic priest, Father Heflon, who gives us a very solid explanation of this matter. Quote, "The right of the Holy Catholic Church is paramount to all other rights, individuals or collective, state or national. The authority exercised by states belong to the Pope, the Vicar of Christ. He permits them only for a time," unquote. The rights guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution will come into direct conflict with the absolutism of the Catholic Church. And if nothing else, 13 centuries of Romanism has taught us that religious intolerance is the bulwark and foundation of the papacy. This leading fact, so often ignored, requires constant repetition. We forget it at our peril. It is true that the Catholics in America take an oath to honor and uphold the Constitution of the United States, but it is equally true that they take another secret oath to the Pope that absolves them from the former oath to America. This oath reads in part, quote, I, likewise, undoubtedly receive and profess all other things delivered, defined, and declared by the sacred canons and general councils, and particularly, excuse me, by the Holy Council of Trent. And I reject and anathematize all things contrary thereto, and all heresies which the Church hath condemned, I rejected and anathematized, unquote. Trent denied every Reformation doctrine, including the right to freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, and further, it anathematized all who do not accept the early authority of the Pope. And as we read earlier, anyone who is so anathematized is automatically deemed a heretic and may be killed anywhere. If my Catholic reader demands to know why we here present these facts, we ask, quote, are you a faithful Roman Catholic? And do you accept the doctrines and dogmas of the Council of Trent? Unquote. If you answer affirmatively, then you are an enemy of our liberty and of our peace, for you agree to anathemize us and call down the wrath of God upon our heads. Therefore, it is not in your mouth to say we are unfair or accuse us of anti-Catholic sentiments. A man cannot demand of others what he is not willing to give himself. On this, I hope we can agree. And then the person that had this book prior to me has written Matthew 7:12. The ex-Catholic priest Charles Chanakwi warned, there is a fact to which the American people have not yet given sufficient attention. A fact, says Chanakwi, which has fallen on the ears of deaf men. Chanakwi was no ordinary priest. He was a professor of belles lettres at the College of Nicolet in Canada until 1833. In 1851, he established an extensive Roman Catholic colony at Kankakee, Illinois, USA, and served with distinction as a priest for 25 years. What is the fact that has fallen on deaf ears? Solidities, Catholic action. In 1772, the man who was to become the first Catholic archbishop in America, the Jesuit John Carroll, was appointed by the Jesuit general Lorenzo Ricci as the prefect of solidity. What, you ask, is solidity? Solidity is a secret, usually lay, fraternity within the Catholic Church. What does the title Perfect of Solidity mean? The New Catholic Encyclopedia explains, quote, a chief organizer of laymen for the promotion of some form of social action, unquote. What form of social action, we ask? In the army of the Roman Catholic Church, the solidities are the paramilitary, the ordinary priests, the regular army, while the well-drilled Jesuits are the crack troops, or Minutemen, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice to do God's work. All solidalists are required to undertake similar rituals as the Jesuits, an examination of conscience not unlike that of the Jesuits themselves, a 5-step method based on the spiritual exercises of La Loya. The solidities have a long history of affiliation to the Jesuit order. For example, the Solidity of the Sacred Heart, or the Confraternity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which extends throughout the world, was established in 1729 by the efforts of Jesuit Father Joseph Galifitti. Prima Primaria. The work carried on by the Jesuits through the solidities, particularly that of Prima Primaria, has been completely overlooked by those who study the Society of Jesus. Indeed, so far as I am aware, it has never been adequately described by any non-Catholic writer in recent times. The first and greatest solidity, the mother of them all, is the solidity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, also called the primary solidity or Prima Primaria. It was founded in 1563 at Rome in the Roman College of the Jesuits by John Lunas. who was received into the Society of Jesus by Ignatius Loyola himself on January 13th, 1556. In 1584, Pope Gregory XIII issued the bull Omnipotentus Dea, recognizing Father Linus' solidity as the primaria, the primary congregation to which all other solidities or confraternities were to be aggregated under new rules. Thus, since 1584, then all the solidities throughout the world have been under the ubiquitous hands of the Jesuits through the Jesuit solidity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, aka Primaria. E. Mullins, a Jesuit, writes, the new rules annulled all others and were to be observed henceforth by all solidities. The importance of the new rules can hardly be exaggerated. They coordinated the forces and directed their efforts toward one and the same aim everywhere. Elder Mullen, Society of Jesus, History of the Primaria, 1917, page 75. In this way, the Jesuits have been able to unsuspectingly extend their influence and spy networks into all territories. Solidities affiliated with the Primaria exist in nearly all the chief towns of England, Ireland, Scotland, and America, wherever the Society of Jesus owns a church. This mysterious organization, Primaria, has evidently played an important part in the past history of the Jesuit order, for it boasts of having had amongst its members such distinguished personages as Popes Urban VIII, Alexander VII, Clement IX, Clement X, together with a host of cardinals. Said Walsh, the various solidities established by the Jesuits for different classes have frequently been utilized by them for furthering their political schemes and mischievous plans, have proved very serviceable to the Jesuits. The following is a revealing extract from the Catholic Encyclopedia about who really controls the solidities. Sorry, guys. Benedict XIV, by a brief of 8 September 1751, granted the Jesuit general authority to unite the Roman main solidity, Primaria, other solidities of either sex. Pope Leo XII, on March 1825, granted the Jesuit general the right to unite all solidities, even if they existed outside of Jesuit houses. On 8 December of the same year, the General of the Society of Jesus approved new general rules for the solidities under Jesuit direction, the leadership of the Jesuits. Wherever the Society of Jesus went to establish colleges or missions, a solidity was soon erected in that place. Membership rose to many hundreds of thousands. After the restoration of the Society of Jesus, the solidities grew enormously. In the 50 years after the declaration of the dogma of the Immaculate Conception in 1854, nearly 35,000 new solidities were united with the Roman main solidity. In the year 1910 alone, 1,132 new solidities were established, of which 178 were in North America. Emperors, kings, and princes have been zealous members of solidities, including among their most faithful members the greatest and noblest men of every position in life, generals and scholars of the highest rank. Solidities are nurseries for youth. These solidities are not mere social clubs or prayer groups. They are all secret societies or confraternities with their secret missions, pledges, and oaths. Some 35,000 new solidities were formed since 1854. There are solidities of priests, of nobles, of merchants, of working men, of clerks, of married men, of unmarried men, of soldiers, yes, soldiers, etc., all affiliated to the Primaria solidity in the Roman College of the Society of Jesus. The solidities affiliated to the primaria include female solidities such as the Children of Mary or Figli di Maria. Nor are the solidities confined to the upper ranks of society. Special solidities exist for different classes of society. Walsh, Serpa, page 340. The Jesuits have established solidities of young men in every city in America. The city of New York had its Catholic Union, and closely allied to this, though more limited in its objects, were the Xavier Union. Each solidity has hundreds, and in some cases thousands of members around the world. So we see, as the Catholic peer Lord Montagu said, the Roman Catholic Church is the largest secret society in the world, besides which Freemason is but a pygmy. And to whom do these solidities and guilds owe their allegiance? To the Constitution of America? The Catholic Church says no. If the Pope directed the Roman Catholics of this country to overthrow the Constitution, sell the nationality of the country, and annex it as a dependent province, they would be bound to obey. How is this possible? The Catholic Church holds the consciences of its subjects in the United States by the confessional, and thus destroys their freedom. By the confessional, the priest obtains dominion over the conscience, and there is an end to personal liberty. The confessional gives to the priest a thorough knowledge of the character of his victims. Lord Digby's famous declaration is as true as it is instructive. I am a Catholic church. I'm not Catholic church, forgive me. I am a Catholic first, an Englishman afterwards. Thus, in the solidities, we have a sprawling, federated republic in miniature, a mini state inside America, whose economic, civic, and social ideals are dictated by Rome. Solidities, the Vatican's lay spy network. The Canadian historian Parkman writes, there exists in Quebec, under the auspices of the Jesuits, an association called Saint Famille. They meet in the cathedral every Thursday with closed doors, where they relate to each other as they are bound by a vow to do all they have learned, whether good or bad, concerning other people during the week. Nino Lo Bello, who lived and worked in Rome, confirms in his book, The Vatican Papers, that the Vatican spy network has the most efficient and widespread system of espionage in the whole world, outclassing even that of the Russian KGB. He says that among the Vatican's many agents are members of a group known as the Soliditium Pineum, Solitary of Pius, or League of Pope Pius V, which includes every priest, nun, and monk anywhere on earth. Soliditium Pianum, more widely known as God's Underground, was the reactionary papal secret spy organization established by Pope Pius X. Historian John Cornwell confirms that Pope Pius X did indeed introduce a secret society called the Solidium Pianeum in 1909 for the sole purpose of espionage. According to Lo Bello, this faithful army consists of more than 2.5 million people, including many full-time trained agents, diocesan priests, regular priests, seminarians, religious males, and nuns. Apparently, so they would have us believe, Soliditium Pianum was suppressed in 1912, only to reemerge in 1915, to again be suppressed in 1921. But this is by the by. In a letter dated January 25th, 1925, the Jesuit general Vladimir Ledowski described the key role of the Solidites. The Solidites, directed by Jesuits and by others who might wish to have recourse to them, help in the forming of new solidities to be a center of information, and to encourage the exchange of news items. The exchange of items of news is a euphemism for spying. Notice that Jesuit General Ledowski speaks of the Sidelites as being one big center of information for the exchange of news items. These items of information the members glean from their various places of work, education, and residence. Indeed, Indeed, says Pope Benedict XIV, it is almost incredible what results have sprung from the pious and praiseworthy institution, referring to the Solidities. Catholic action, danger ahead, stop, look, listen. In 1948, the Apostolic Constitution, Vias Sacrari Dia, declared the Solidities Catholic action. Pope Pius XI called them lay apostolate and reaffirmed their Jesuit charism, i.e., Jesuit influence. He declared them a particular form of Catholic action. And his successor, Pope Pius XII, said, the lay apostolate, like every other apostolate, has two tasks: to preserve and to conquer. The Solidities are the vanguard of the so-called Catholic action, with the elite troops of the Jesuits behind. Former Catholic priest Chinaquai explains, in order to drill the Roman Catholics and prepare them for the final struggle, the Jesuits have organized them into a great number of secret societies. The Ancient Order of Hibernium, Apostles of Liberty, Knights of St. Peter, Knights of the Red Branch, etc., etc. Almost all of these secret associations are military ones. They have their headquarters at San Francisco, but their rank and file are scattered all over the United States. They number, at least at that time, 700,000 soldiers who, under the name of U.S. Volunteer Militia, are officered by some of the most skillful generals and officers of this republic. See page 283 of his book. To Chinaquai's list of secret societies or solidities, we might add Skull and Bones, Opus Dei, the Knights of Columbus, the Knights of Peter Claver, Ancient Egyptian Order of Sciots, it's Sciots, the Independent Order of Foresters, Catholic Order of Foresters, Ancient Order of Foresters, Knights of the Red Cross, Knights of St. John, Knights of Malta, the St. Leopold Foundation, and the Catholic League, a league so vast and pervasive even than the combined armed forces of the United States. Speaking of his own church, Charles Chinaquai wrote, it is to San Francisco that you must go to have an idea of the number of secret and powerful organizations with which the Church of Rome prepares for the impending conflict through which she hopes to destroy the schools and every vestige of human rights and liberties in the United States. We quote verbatim from priests Father Sanborn and Heflon. Said Father Sanborn, it is clear that the Catholic Church condemns freedom of conscience, freedom of religion. Freedoms are held as sacrosanct in the American culture. In an effort not to appear un-American, the Catholic clergy in the United States, for the most part, neglected these condemnations of religions and other freedoms as well of the Church. The only true Catholic stance in politics is to desire a constitution for one's country which recognizes the Roman Catholic Church as the one true church. Read next the private words of Father Heflon to Professor Milford. All right, and this is Father Hefflon. The Roman state and church wink at the claims of the United States government of heretics, for it is expedient for the purposes of Rome that this Protestant nation go on in their blind confidence of security, while Catholics prepare for the great conflict. Professor Milford Melton replies, then you Catholics expect a violent conflict? At what time, Father Hefflon? Response, Father Hefflon. When the Pope shall anathematize the government of the United States. I know not when that shall be, but I know that it will be, and that too not far in the future. By that act of the Pope, every Roman Catholic will be absolved from his oath of allegiance to the United States government. What I say here in a private must be regarded as private and not intended for the public. Response, Professor Milford. And what will be the results of this event? Father Hefflon. What will follow? Everything will follow for which we have worked and suffered and waited. At what time Catholics will rise up and the Pope of Rome will plant his palace here. Reader, do you understand what you have just read? The time is not far away when the faithful Roman Catholics of the Republic of the United States will, at the order of the Pope, exert their influence and power to the fullest extent in favor of their church's cause. And this order will be obeyed as if it were a command from God himself. Today, there are millions of intelligent Americans who, despite what they may say publicly, believe in and maintain a most sacred article of faith, that most monstrous innovation of the Jesuits and the infallibility of the Pope, and who, instead of thinking for themselves, allow a mitred priest in Italy to tell them which politician to vote for, what to think, and when to be absolved from their oath of allegiance to the United States. Read here what the Catholic Church, waxing bold, once said of itself. Many non-Catholics fear us as a political organization and are afraid that the Catholic Church will dominate and rule. We are working quietly, seriously, I may say effectively, to that end. The Catholic Magazine, Missionary, June 1909, page 69. As one writer so profoundly observed, the Roman Catholic Church, with all its ramifications, forms one vast organization under the control and designed to serve the interests of the Papal See. Its millions of communicants in every country on the globe are instructed to hold themselves as bound in allegiance to the Pope. Whatever their nationality or their government, they are to regard the authority of the Church as above all other. Though they may take the oath pledging their loyalty to the state, yet back of this lies the vow of obedience to Rome, absolving them from every pledge inimical to her interest. And the Catholic world, endorsed by the highest dignitaries of the Church, including the Pope, in an article of July 1870, states, the supreme duty of Catholics is to obey the Pope and seek in every way, and especially by means of the ballot, to render the Catholic policy effective in this country. And that's from the Catholic World, Volume 11, number 64, 1870. All Catholics must make themselves felt as active elements in the daily political life in the countries where they live. All Catholics should exert their power to cause the Constitution of the states to be modeled on the principles of the true Church. Pope Leo XIII, encyclical letter of the 1890. As to what end was explained by Pope Pius IX in his syllabus of 1864, the Church has the right to require that the Catholic religion shall be the religion of the state to the exclusion of all others. In view of this bold and official pronouncements from the Catholic Church and several of her popes, what are we to do? Can anyone be faulted for agreeing with Dr. J.R. Rowe when he says in his book, Neuheiten, A Romance of Rome, that every person who holds any mental reservation in favor of the Pope, while outwardly swearing allegiance to the United States, should not be permitted to hold any office in the gift of the American people? With this, we are inclined to agree. Yet we are told by Topper Saucy that at one time in the recent past, almost the entire Senate Foreign Relations Committee was governed by Roman Catholics. Rulers of Evil, 2001, page 12. In fact, in 1992, there were virtually no arena of federal legislative activity according to the 1992 World Almanac of U.S. Politics that was not directly controlled by a Roman Catholic senator or representative. It's filled today now. Absolutely, top all the way down. That was not directly controlled by a Roman Catholic senator or representative. Virtually every aspect of secular life in America came under the chairmanship of one of these Roman Catholic laypersons. Rulers of Evil, page 12 and 13. But the Bishop of St. Louis has warned us, if Catholics ever gain a sufficient numerical majority in this country, religious freedom is at an end. So our enemy says, so we believe. The Shepherd of the Valley. Official Journal of the Bishop of St. Louis, November 23rd, 1851. Now, on a calm survey of this evidence, can you reasonably disagree that papists ought to be required to publicly renounce their foreign allegiance and anti-republican doctrines if they are to be given any office of state? But the thing is, the end justifies the means. They will lie, renounce it, but really, they still, just like it says in the beginning of this book, it's just foolish to even say that. Okay, and who is orchestrating it all? China Kuai says these secret societies are all drilled by the ubiquitous hands of the Jesuits. The Roman Catholic General Lafayette wrote, "It is my opinion that if the liberties of this country, the United States of America, are destroyed, it will be by the subtlety of the Roman Catholic Jesuit priests, for they are the most crafty, dangerous enemies to civil and religious liberty." Jeremiah J. Crowley, which I have got to finish that book, who was a priest for over 20 years, warned, "Today they, the Jesuits, are stronger in the United States than they ever were at any of the other countries of Europe, which expelled them as a menace to the government. Shouldn't they be expelled from America also? But as some witty person once said, it is better to resist the devil than to attempt to turn him out of the house." That is most true. Resist the devil, says St. James, and he will flee from you. James chapter 4, verse 7. For the devil always flees before stout resistance. But alas, that is not true of the men called Jesuits. Resist the Jesuit, and he will fly at you. And that ends chapter 32. All right, brothers and sisters. What time is it? It is almost 7 in the morning. All right, keep your eyes on Jesus. Excuse me. And your nose in the book, which is the Word of God. And in the Word of God, seriously, I'm not even kidding. Guys, the more I'm reading, the more I'm learning. It's very frightening. We better know the Word of God. We better know it's the true Word of God. So let us embed it in our hearts so we will not sin against God or be deceived. Have a beautiful day.